So, the F1 Sim Racing World Championship 2026 kicks off in style at DreamHack Birmingham. 3 epic races and 3 different winners. And now the championship has come home to Formula One's Media and Technology Centre, just through that glass there. So come with me as we take a look around. This is so cool for any F1 fan because just through there is the heart of the Formula One operation, bringing you every single race on the calendar. And now they have the honour of bringing you this season's championship right across the next 2 days, where our drivers will be battling it out in style and we'll be bringing you all of the lowdown. Now, I'm not the only one. I've also got a brilliant team around me, and we've actually got a new member of the team to introduce you to right now.
Thank you very much, Tom. My name is Nina Jade Paul and I'm the pit lane reporter for this week's Formula One Sim Racing Championship. It's been an exciting time here recently as we've been watching the brand new sim racing stage get built before our very eyes. And as you can see, it's nothing short of spectacular. Over the next 2 days, I'll be asking our drivers all the hard-hitting questions and getting their instant reactions as they hop out of the sim rigs. But for now, throwing it back up to you, Tom, in the studio to introduce a few familiar faces.
I'll tell you what, got the steps in there here at the Formula One Media and Technology Centre. I have indeed got brilliant guests with me. Nina, great to have you on board. Jack Crawford, Aston Martin reserve driver. Thank you so much for coming along and bringing a bit of prestige to these two gentlemen before I get to them. Jack, I know you watched a little bit of Event 1. Looking forward to today?
Yeah, super excited to be here and hopefully watch some Aston Martins win the race, hopefully.
I knew it was going to happen. He was going to be biased early on, but impressive performances from Ruben Pedreira. I know we'll talk a little bit about that. I want to know your sort of history in gaming. Where did it all start for you, Jack?
Yeah, I guess I actually got into F1 a little bit through the F1 game. My first F1 game was F1 2014.
Wow.
On my Xbox, I played on controller. I kind of got to learn about F1 and the cars and the drivers then, because obviously being American, it wasn't really, televised much at the time. And that's how I kind of learned about F1.
Well, listen, it's great to have you on board, as I said. Kai Bacchini, back again after Event 1. It was so good, Event 1. I mentioned there, we had 9 different drivers on the podium. It had a little bit of everything. Looking forward to today?
Yeah, it's the first time in F1 sim racing history that we've had 9 drivers across the podium in the 3 races. And I think Event 1 was just such a great way to start the season. And it's only the beginning as well. If you thought round 1 was chaotic, boy, do you have a lot in store for you today.
George Morgan, back again. Lovely to see you. 9 different drivers. What does that tell you about this season's championship?
The level has risen, basically. We've got to the point now where we've got several drivers that are in contest for race wins. And we had a really thrilling fight, right through the entirety of the 3 races, especially Bahrain, where things became ever so slightly unhinged. But I think that's what we love about this championship. It is so competitive. Yeah, so competitive. Well, it's great to have everyone on board as well. We're talking about it. Let's show you it. Event 1 was spectacular. It was epic. We started in Shanghai. Yeah, it was, obviously, to kick off the championship, this was perfect. Freddie Rasmussen, though, coming back to his best in qualifying, managing to secure pole position. Otis Lawrence had a little bit of a stumble with Jarno Opmeer, and yet again, another stumble, just extending himself, coming down towards the heavy braking zone at the end of the straight. Jonas Zildjian, yet another inspired Chinese performance. He has really proven himself around this track, certainly through league racing, but could not quite do it where it counted because Rasmussen was on show, Kai.
Suzuka was the big shock. 3 drivers jumping the start there. Nico Longe, Freddie Rasmussen and Alvaro Carreton. His debut this season unfortunately hindered by that penalty off the start. Now for Longe and Rasmussen, it was very much a race against the clock for the rest of the race. Can they build up that 10-second gap to make sure they're able to maintain the victory? Off the circuit went Rasmussen and across the line came Otis Lawrence. Look at how much that race win meant to him.
It was so emotional because, of course, we all witnessed the first win he ever had last year. And again, tempers were running high here at Bahrain. We saw the big crash with Jonas Zildjian making contact with Alfie Butcher, effectively ending his podium streak, and then the re-entry against John Evans put him out. Jarno Opmeer, though, was on a charge. This was the big moment. One of the overtakes, best overtakes we have ever seen in F1 sim racing history. 3 cars around the outside coming out of turn 11 through turn 12 and turn 13. Jarno Opmeer at his best. Ismail Fassi also in the thick of the action. No one could stop the Flying Dutchman, and he was a winner once again. A proven champion, a proven great, and cemented once again here at Bahrain.
You saw what it meant to him. Who was he pointing at? That's something I want to find out at the end of Event 2. I was too scared to ask him when we were back at DreamHack in Birmingham. But there you are, Freddie Rasmussen, Jarno Opmeer. They are kind of the team to beat, aren't they, in terms of how many wins these 2 drivers have had, George?
Yeah, they're just 2 of the greats, the all-time greats. When you look at the all-time points, Freddie in the 4 figures in terms of number of points. Jarno Opmeer is well on his way to achieving the same feat. If you're a 3-time world champion, you've surpassed Brendan Lee's phenomenal stats of 2 world titles, let alone equaling that to go one step further. Obviously, it's never been seen before. He's the first to do it, and it's going to take a lot to take him down.
You gasped seeing some of the action from Sakir. There's a lot to talk about that race because there were a few incidents. The adjudication has happened. We couldn't bring you the update of that, but we can do it now. And let's talk about those incidents, Kai. What happened here?
Yeah, I think emotions were definitely running high, especially for Julasz Ildrim. Got himself involved in that incident with the McLaren of Alfie Butcher, which took him out of the race. And now I think desperation, just trying to rejoin the circuit and recuperate time lost. Similar situation there for Ismail Fassi. He got tangled up in that battle with Otis Lawrence and completely misjudged his braking zone into the final corner on the last lap. Sorry, first corner on the last lap. And that's the result of it, a 10-second penalty handed by the stewards.
Bit of a late break, wasn't it, Jack?
A little bit. But I understand it. You know? It's like racing in the real car. When I sim race, you have the same adrenaline. So yeah, I totally get it.
Well, we just saw John Evans and Ismail Fassi having the pole in Sakhir. What did it do? What were the race results then after all of those incidents? And fair play to the amazing stewards that we've got. I think they only finished doing everything about 2 days ago. So they've had their work cut out. And there you have it, Jarno Opmeer. It was phenomenal, his drive. What did you take away from it, George?
It's Jarno doing Jarno things. I must say, we saw similar things back at COTA in the wet. China has been an unbelievable track for him in the past. He's just shown what he can do at Bahrain as well. Race winner, Nico Longe, another fantastic talent I think we're going to be seeing more of, I think, through the rest of the season. Seems to have found his feet at Williams.
Who finished third? Jack?
Ruben Pedreño.
That's what I'm talking about. The Aston Martin cheer, the fans are in the house. Any surprises from what you saw of those three races, and particularly Sakhir?
Yeah, I think the big thing, and I was going through the numbers actually coming into today, and Joris Krozen has not only achieved his first points finish, did manage to do that at China. He's actually 3 in a row, 100% points records in terms of scoring this season. So that's an immense rise from where he was last campaign.
Yeah, we will take a look at the driver standing so everyone knows what's happening. Any surprises for you, Kai, from Event 1?
I think everyone was surprised by the result there at Sakhir.
Yeah.
When we were looking at the race develop, we saw all the battling going on. It was looking once again to be a race between Lawrence and Fassi out in front, as those two were just pulling away. Didn't look like anyone else was really going to get involved. Then they started battling. Longe creeped in, and that just invited everyone to swarm up at the front end. And I think it's fair to say, as George mentioned earlier, some of the best racing we've ever seen in F1 sim racing history.
What does it do for the driver standings? Well, let's have a look as we see the drivers getting ready, moments away from going racing. But here it is, Jarno Opmeer doing Jarno things there, and some fantastic drivers. One name that isn't there, who needs a shout out, not only because it's his birthday today, but Thomas Ronha. Surprised that he's not in the top 10 so far after 3 races.
There's a little bit of hope though, Tom, I will say, because he was 4th coming off the back of Bahrain last time out. I mean, obviously the first 2 races were they were a rough ride for the Dutchman. Equally for his teammate Julian Klaffenbach. He needs to respond ASAP. It's so urgent now. You've got to factor in, this is a man that's been contesting for the title ever since he's joined the championship. So it's very rare to see him in this position.
Jack, obviously competing in F2 last year, finishing 2nd. What's it like as a driver when things haven't gone right for you in the first couple of races? How do you reset? How are these guys going to have to come into Event 2?
Yeah, that's pretty much the situation I had last year. I had first 3 races of the year, first 5 races of the year actually, without points. And, going into the season, I was, expected to come and fight for a championship and do well, and it all went wrong. And basically, had to sit down with my team and just keep working and stay positive. And, the next race we were on pole in Jeddah. So it can all change around really quickly in this sport. You just got to keep at it and make sure you keep your team around you.
Well, hopefully Thomas Ronha will take a little bit of that on board. Teams, standings, that's something that we'd like to know, because that is where the prize pool is. And well, when you've got 2 of the best drivers, that's why they're sitting at the top. But surprise to anybody, Alpine, Otis Lawrence, Danny Berezny, 1 OG and 1 upstart coming through. Incredible to see what they're doing right now.
I tell you what, Tom, I'm not surprised at all. I actually picked out Alpine to be, one of the big contenders against Red Bull this season. And appreciate that they're not necessarily close points-wise, but certainly considering their position in the table, it's a reflection of that. Otis Lawrence, one of the brightest young talents we have seen in the modern era of F1 sim racing. I mean, we all saw his celebration last year, 12 months ago, where he took his first ever win in this championship at Jeddah, of all places. 16 years of age when he pulled that off. And obviously we saw the celebrations. There was uproar in the arena And we love passion. And I'm sure there's more to come from those two.
I tell you what, we all heard it, didn't it? I predicted Alpine. We all heard it here. Nina Jade.
There's high science involved in that.
No, and he's Welsh as well. We know what's happening, George. Listen,
bias.
Nina Jade caught up with Otis a little bit earlier on. Let's find out how he is approaching event 2.
Otis, event 1 in the books, and you are currently sitting P2 in the championship standings, just 5 points behind the leader, Jarno Opmeer. You had a really solid event 1, and that win in Japan, you could see how much it meant to you and your team. It was such a feel-good moment. How would you assess the start to your season?
Well, it's been a great start, to be honest. We've given it our all. Our team has been fantastic. We've made a few mistakes in the first event. It wasn't a perfect event, and we're still P2 somehow. So, we just got to keep going, keep focused. It's a long season ahead. Lots of things can happen, as we saw in many rounds. Jarno obviously didn't have a good first 2 rounds, and obviously I didn't have a good first and last round. So, anything can happen in this championship. We just got to stay focused, stay locked in, and we'll see what happens.
You mentioned it's a long season ahead, but you are a title contender now. Like I say, 5 points behind the leader. How do you carry that momentum into the next rounds?
Well, I just stay focused, of course. Just got to stay focused, keep driving maximum, keep enjoying it as much as I can, because I love driving. The main thing is I just enjoy it as much as I can during the races. That will extract the best performance out of myself. And the team's fantastic. I have a really good team behind me. I'm really confident in my team. I can trust them a lot. We're going to push 110% for this win.
110%, absolutely. We've got a great lineup in terms of tracks: Jeddah, Barcelona, Silverstone. With Jeddah up first, it's hard not to talk about last season and your astonishing drag race to the finish line. You beat Jarno Opmeer by 0.003 of a second. So I've got to say, are you hoping for a part 2? Do it again?
Well, I hope it's the exact same, so we get a win. But anything can happen at this track. It's a really tough track to get right. One mistake and you could be back in the grid, or out of the race. So, got to stay super focused during this race. It's going to be the toughest one on the calendar. So, I'm excited. Hopefully, you can do back to back.
Well, you said how tough it is, but you are the youngest ever F1 sim racing winner, and your first win was here at Jeddah. So surely you're a little bit confident.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident as always, but. As being the youngest driver, a winner. It's nice, but I've just got to keep focused, to keep doing what I'm doing. I enjoy it as much as I can, and we'll get the best results.
One thing I also want to touch on is your personality. You've got such a cheeky, chappy personality, playing up to the cameras. Will we see more of that, Otis?
If I get pole win, I'll shout even louder. Try and wind people up.
You don't need much encouragement.
Yeah.
Well, Otis, thank you very much for taking the time to chat with us today. Good luck for today and, of course, the rest of the week.
It's hard not to like Otis Lawrence, the enthusiasm, super focus. So what did you take from his interview? He seems ready for event 2.
Yeah, he didn't seem under pressure. So, he's an Alpine, so I don't.
Oh, okay.
I don't want to cheer for him, but it seems like he's ready to go.
Well, yeah, you heard from Nina there. It said on my card that I was going to announce where we're going to be racing, but she's done a sterling job. We will be starting off in Jeddah. Let's look where else we're going to be racing over the next 2 days. Kickstart in Jeddah. As we have already heard from Jack Crawford, he had a pole back in Jeddah last year, and actually all of these tracks he has finished on the podium. There is your stat. There is your facts for that. We'll get into that a little bit more. But Kai, where are you looking forward to going racing?
Well, I'm excited for the track that's surrounded by a bit of mystery. Barcelona is going to be the second race of these couple days, and never in F1 sim racing history have we visited the Circuit de Catalunya. So I'm excited to see what these drivers are able to do around the track. We've got no data on the drivers, no past results. So it's all up in the air. Anything can happen.
What about yourself, George? Which one are you looking forward to commentating over?
Well, I can't really pick between the Jeddah and the Silverstone track, to be honest with you. We've had some phenomenal winners at Silverstone. It's been a Red Bull hunting ground, really, I have to say. Aside from that, Nico Longuet, another option, and not to mention Saudi Arabia. There's been lots of action. We saw a big crash that Danny Berejnay was involved in. We heard "Good luck, Jake" after that. It was a bit of a mishmash, but we always love the action when we go there.
Okay, well, we've told you where we're going to be racing, but who is going to be racing? George, where should we start with the driver lineups?
Yeah, well, I tell you what, we have got a fascinating grid to take you through the course of tonight, folks. You do not want to miss a thing. Kicking things off with Mercedes, Julian Klaffenbach and Thomas Ronhaar. Ronhaar very much up against his usual run of form. Obviously, without the result last time at Bahrain, it would have been a truly miserable run. But Julian Clappermock still chasing his first F1 Sim Racing World Championship points. Certainly not familiar territory that we expect Mercedes to be performing at, but maybe with the mystery round at Barcelona, things may change. We've got McLaren lining up next. Jake Benham, who has done well on the podiums last season. Alfie Butcher, a 3-time F1 Sim Racing race winner here, Kai, and obviously 2 drivers to watch.
Yeah, a very exciting lineup for me. One of the youngest lineups on the grid, both 18 and 19 years old are Butcher and Benham. Jake Benham also taking home his first ever podium in F1 Sim Racing history at this exact circuit. That was Jeddah in 2025. You mentioned it, George, 2 podiums in the 3 races so far this season, and I'm excited to see what they were able to do.
Yeah, certainly a very fascinating pairing. Much more to come. Ulashes Zildrim, who was highly involved in the incidents at Bahrain last time out, but he did take a P2 back at China after a sterling qualifying performance. He's alongside the former Challengers champion, Tom Manley, in at Racing Bulls. And again, we expect more from this young man, that's for sure. And this could be perhaps this event, of course. But remember, with the incidents that were accrued last time by Ulashes Zildrim, knocking together now 5 instant points, highest of those runners. Remember, 12 instant points gets you a ban. Ferrari, they're running with Ismail Fassi, a former race winner as well, and certainly has been threatening many of the others. Remember, runner-up as well in the championship last season with Williams. He's lining up alongside John Evans, who has certainly been around the block now for quite some time, formerly of Aston Martin. I saw a wide smile on the face of Jack Crawford as I said that. Now with Ferrari, and we'll see how he can get on, still chasing his first points. Williams with Istvan Pukki, Nico Longe, some of the best form we've seen from him as of late. Since the move from Ferrari, now situated in Williams, the team at Grove, providing him with a stupendous platform. We look forward to seeing whether he can cook up something special again. Also has done well at Silverstone in the past, so we'll wait and see how he does later into the week. But I'm sure Jeddah he'll have his eyes on this time. We move across to Haas, and 2 drivers that have really started to rise. Tamas Gell may still be chasing his first major points, obviously still chasing some big podiums. Joris Krozen has been in amongst it already, scoring 3 successive point-scoring rounds in the 3 rounds that we have had. It is a 100% record in terms of points accrued in this campaign alone. So it just goes to show the immense growth that they have managed to pull together. Let's take a look at Alpine now, because Otis Lawrence, we just heard from him just now, very confident, so passionate about his racing, lining up alongside a veteran in Danny Berejnay, Tom. An exciting lineup heading to Jeddah.
Yes, and as we know, Otis Lawrence moving from Aston Martin, as I look at Jack Crawford, to starting up for Alpine. Danny Berejnay, 8 wins between them, 15 race starts for Otis Lawrence, and that's what it means. It's all in his head, it's all in his mind. He's got super focus. 3 wins for him, and both of them a debut season, and what a season they are having right now, George.
Yeah, they're having a magnificent season, second in the championship. Now we have Aston Martin, Big Dunk, Duncan Hoffland lining up alongside Rima Pedreño, who called that brilliant strategy call last time at Bahrain to take P3. These are some smart drivers, Jack.
Yeah, and Duncan, you're right, calling him Big Duncan. He's
Yeah,
he's a big dude. So.
But Rima Pedreño, how impressed have you been with him?
Yeah, good. I was running with them a little bit in the sim, and they're really fun to work with, and yeah, they've been good.
Yeah, well, we got Red Bull next as well, and these are the 2 that are spearheading the championship with Frederick Rasmussen, who has certainly been on song in the initial stages. Things went a little bit sour, though, towards the tail end of the last event. Jarno Opmeer with that stupendous move around the outside, around turn 11 through turn 12 and 13. The Flying Dutchman, 3 times a world champion, and clearly just qualifying in Q2, not even getting into Q3 on the last 2 attempts, not perturbing his efforts in terms of achieving big points. So let's wait and see whether he can pull the exploits off once more. But fascinating stuff coming into Jeddah, Tom.
Brilliant. Love that. We know the drivers that are going to be competing, and we know we're going to be starting in Jeddah. I'll take you back to last year then, getting a pole round there. In terms of quali, what do you look for? What do you like about the circuit of Jeddah?
Yeah, Jeddah is one of the hardest tracks. It's street course, not much room for error. You need to be super precise. And, I was actually driving the F1 game the other day, and I was driving Jeddah, and you can't even skim the walls or else you get an invalidation. Or at least in real life, you can at least touch the walls.
It's 27 turns. We'll have a fair few laps on this one, 25 laps, I believe. George, what do you make of this circuit, and where is the action going to be happening?
Well, I think obviously Jack alluded to it quite well. Close walls and very narrow margin for error is obviously the story of Jeddah. A very flat surface, obviously in comparison to your typical traditional circuit. This is, of course, a street track, so very little elevation change, maybe some little off-camber spaces, but certainly nothing, I think, to upset the drivers, especially when you come round to the very in-swinging hairpins as such, where you can almost leave your foot half throttle going around it, though some of these drivers love to keep it pinned down for as long as possible. So much opportunity. The slipstream at this circuit, especially in that final sector, is absolutely massive. So expect to see some overtakes when we go racing, but obviously in qualifying, it's about the all-important flying lap.
Yeah, and as we watch, and I keep reminding myself that there's so many new fans to F1 sim racing who might be watching right now thinking, hang on a minute, they're out on Inters. Kai, what is going on? And can you break this down for our new viewers?
Well, to put it the simplest way possible, they don't want to waste any of their good tyres. So at the beginning of a Q1 session, all the drivers will head out onto the circuit on an intermediate set of tyres just to test that everything's working, make sure everything's all right in the simulators, everything's all right on the cars, and then it'll be later on that we'll start to see those flying laps coming in.
I have to ask this question, and I'm sure if Jarno could hear us, he'd be like, not again. Not the greatest qualifier. Out of the 6 races that we have raced in F1 sim racing in Jeddah, he's finished on the podium 5 times. His last win back in 2020. Can anyone stop Jarno Opmeer in this race that we're about to get underway in quali?
They can try. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But the thing is, his efforts in qualifying have always been, should we say, not necessarily up to the same standard of his race trim expertise. But then he's an incredible genius where it comes to strategy calls and making the big plays. And that makes all the difference in the world. That can very easily define your champion. It's how you come back from those obscure moments. And, he's proven time and time again that he can be that driver. And I mean, Jack, I'm not sure about you. I mean, you spend a lot of time with your engineers, concocting that perfect strategy. If qualifying doesn't necessarily go to plan, you've got to do something in the race to correct that.
Yeah, and I guess luckily for him, Jeddah and Barcelona, I think, are 2 tracks where you can really do something with strategy, at least in the real world. I don't know about here, but I assume it's the same. But yeah, you just need to have a great relationship with your engineer, and you really need to be, working on the same wavelength, really.
What I find fascinating, which we haven't highlighted yet, this is the first time the setup. Can we talk about that for a second while we wait to get those real flying laps underway? But in terms of the setup, they're actually facing each other for the first time ever, George. That blew my mind. And the fact you've got the pit wall right behind, and we talk about how important the race engine is. It feels very compact in there, very close. That would add to the tension, I imagine.
Absolutely. When we go back to DreamHack, they had effectively the similar setup to what we had in Sweden, in a sense, where we had the semicircle, pretty much. So the drivers are never really in direct eye contact with one another. Now, this is very different here because now we've come to the central hub of what Formula One is. We're coming home. The rigs are now pointed directly at one another, and there's a lot of visual, that these drivers have with one another. So eye movements, arm movements, you can see now from the camera in front, there's not a lot between these drivers.
And it's pit wall looking at another pit wall, which is unheard of. And you're talking about those strategies, it adds to the excitement which we as the fans are going to get to see.
I'm sure there'll be a couple dirty looks shot across the pit walls at the other teams. The tension in that room will be able to be cut by a knife, and you can see all the drivers so locked in, so focused on the games. I don't think they're too worried about looking at each other and looking at what they're doing, because they're so focused on their own race. That's all for the engineers, all on the pit wall behind them, but a spectacular setup that we have here.
I was just going to ask you, Jack, because Otis Lawrence, we heard from him, said it's so important. This is the best team he's ever had around him. He's just loving life. How important is that for any driver when you feel supported? Yeah,
I think, the team relationship is, the best and the biggest part. You want to have a great relationship with your team, and once that's kind of ticked off, then, everything else comes naturally. You want to have a great relationship with your engineer, that you guys really understand each other really well, and that, at the end of the day makes a big difference in performance.
So the time has started ticking now on our qualifying in Q1, and we're looking at track evolution. Is that what's happening right now? They're waiting for the perfect opportunity and time to go out there and set some.
Yeah, I mean, as the sessions develop on, the times will just get quicker and quicker. The more rubber that's put down onto the surface of the track, that's when the times will start to get quicker, because with more rubber being placed down on the surface of the circuit, the more that the drivers are able to get out of their cars and the more they're able to push them as well. With Otis Lawrence quite literally kicking his feet up right now, so he's clearly not worried about getting out on the circuit just yet.
Because I feel like we just built it up. Like, this is about to happen. It's Q1. It's event 2. And you look at the shots, everyone's just so relaxed in the zone. It's sort of, it's an absolute opposition of one another. It's very black and white, that sort of look. But that's good for them to be relaxed right now before they really have to dial it in. I mean, look at Nico. I mean, he's so relaxed. This is a guy who's had 62 starts in F1 sim racing. So he's visualizing right now, isn't he, Jack? That's the key term for it.
Yeah, I mean, you know, everyone has their own strategies. You know, when we're sitting in the pit lane, waiting to go on track, you know, you can be having a laugh with your engineer, or you can be meditating, you know, focusing on your lines, trying to see the track in your mind. Everyone has their own way to go about it.
How they get into flow state. George, it is fascinating to see the different drivers and their strategies for getting through this. And there's a man that you have been very impressed with. Thomas Gall picked up 1 point so far in F1 sim racing. And where was that, George?
Well, I was actually here at Jeddah.
That's what I queued you
so there
up
we go.
for.
I mean, listen, I mean, it's been good for Haas lately. I mean, not just for Thomas Gall's previous form here. Really, their highlight, though, has been Joris Krozen coming into this. I mean, especially 2 P5 finishes in his last 3 races. All the races this season have been point-scoring finishes as well. A real step up from last season, where things perhaps weren't quite as comfortable. Seems to have found his feet. That's what Haas are capable of, you know, really improving young drivers. Thomas Ronhaar was great there. Alfie Butcher, his initial foundations were with this team. So who knows where this can take them?
Yeah. Do you think when you look back at event 1, there were a few nerves potentially, and then event 2 is when these drivers are going to be locked in, Kai?
Yeah, I think nerves definitely would have been a little bit higher at the first round. First of all, they're in front of a live audience at DreamHack, which is one of the biggest gaming events in Europe. So in front of a live audience, of course, it's going to be a completely different atmosphere to here, where there is only about 20, 30 people inside of the room, and they're all focused on that one task. Especially with it being the first few races of the year, of course, you're going to be nervous. Those nerves will have settled now. They will have gotten into the flow of things a little bit, got back to how they usually go running, and I'm sure the drivers will be a bit more relaxed during these couple of races, and we'll start to see that in the driving style and also the actual quality of the racing that gets put down on the circuit.
One interesting fact is the fact that Williams are opposite Ferrari. And you have Ismail Fassi, who's moved from Williams, and Nico Longe moving the opposite direction. That kind of adds a little spice, in my opinion. Not that I'm saying there's drama, but that is interesting to look back where you'd come from. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think that also this is Nicolas Longe effectively trying to prove himself, you know, after what was a very difficult occasion at Ferrari in places, because if we look back, we remember what happened at Zandvoort. You know, it happened on a couple of occasions where perhaps he was put on the wrong strategy. We remember the instance of where the incorrect tyres were laid down back in 2023-24, which really set back. It cost them a win, quintessentially, and that was painful for Nico. He was crying in the interview afterwards, very emotional, and we saw that same emotion off him at Japan, if you remember as well, for our second round, after he attempted to negate the jump start penalty that he had received. 10 seconds, and you know, I went through that with Freddie Rasmussen, but he did a phenomenal job in bringing the car home. Freddie ultimately crashed, trying to do the same thing Nico was doing. Nico was the one who was able to bring it home and score some huge points for the team in the process. It was heroic. I'm not going to say heroic for the same reason as Jarno Opmeer, but heroic for its own reason.
Yeah. Definitely. Looking at his stats, Nico Longe, 3 wins in 62 starts. You compare that to Otis Lawrence, 15 starts, 3 wins. No wonder Otis Lawrence is leaving the noise as soon as something happens. And he did say in the interview that if he does win again or get another pole, he's going to be noisy. That can give a little bit of edge to him.
Absolutely. Well, you know, listen, we go back to Jarno Opmeer's use of the finger, shall we say, last time when we went racing at Bahrain, and you definitely felt that was an instant response to Otis Lawrence's celebration after the Japanese Grand Prix that we had. It was literally 1 race later, Jarno responded. It was very much in the direction of the Alpine camp. So I wonder if this is Otis sort of suggesting that he's going to return in kind.
Well, listen, Jack, we're going to stick around with you in the studio. Kai and George are going to look after the commentary for Q1. Fascinating stuff. Really looking forward to this one. I did notice one thing. 3 is the magic number for Nico. Third, he got a P3 for the last couple of qualifying. So will that happen again? I'll leave it with you, George and Kai.
Well, thank you very much, Tom. I mean, honestly, I think it's a possibility, Kai. What do you think?
No, it very much is. He consistently loves a third place finish in qualifying. I'm sure he'll be hoping for 1 or 2 places better though. And we know he has the pace to be 1 or 2 places higher. He's had multiple outstanding results, has Nico Longe, and he has the pace to be on that top spot in pole position. But with the 18 greatest drivers all crammed into one room, anything can really happen. You can't quite count your chickens just yet.
Absolutely not. And if this is a man also who's looking for a big qualifying session, Julian Klappenbach, has been a tough start to his tenure at Mercedes. Of course, goes second fastest now in the initial. Danny Berejnay, obviously holding all the cards up at the top. Otis Lawrence comes across the line, goes second. Jonas Yildirim briefly in third as Freddie Rasmussen nails down his first proper flying lap. And then elsewhere, Thomas Ronhaar, he also needs a big, big event, because coming off the back of that, OK, P4 at Bahrain. It wasn't necessarily, though, down to just his efforts behind the wheel, Kai. There was a lot of other things going on that helped him along the way.
Yeah, Bahrain was definitely an outlier out of the first 3 races that we had. We had both China and Suzuka that were both quite formal races.
Yeah,
there wasn't
formalities.
Wasn't much chaotic stuff happening that was affecting the finishing order. Of course, we had the jump start penalties in Suzuka. That was a big talking point. And as you said, heroic, outstanding from Nico Longe to even be able to recuperate points in that race. Never mind being able to nearly bring out the gap to actually take home the race victory.
Yeah, it was stellar from Nicolas Longe. Obviously, elsewhere we've got Jarno Opmeer now 4th fastest, looking to break the spell at this point as well here, Kai, obviously of the successive 2 Q2 exits.
Yeah, we know that he needs to work on his qualifying results, and I think Jarno also knows that himself. He knows that qualifying isn't his strong point. When I was talking to Joni Tormala not long ago, Joni, also a veteran in the F1 sim racing world, he said that Jarno's qualifying performance just isn't what it used to be. Jarno hasn't really developed with the curve in terms of his qualifying pace. Of course, he's able to keep that pace consistently through the race, and that's why he's able to attack so much and apply so much pressure in a race circumstance. However, if you want to be up at the front end and be able to apply that pressure, you need to qualify well. So I think that's one thing that Jarno needs to focus on this season and improve if he wants to be a 4-time world champion.
Absolutely right. Well, Jake Benham has now divided the Alpine and Red Bull party, because he's now managed to slot into P3, dropping Jarno down to 4th. Freddie Rasmussen down in 5th as well. Danny Berejnay, of course, differing out from the rest of the top 4, has already come into the pits. His teammate Otis Lawrence now coming in as well. Of course, what is great to see and unique about the championship, certainly in its modern era, the teams adopting their own liveries as well, Kai, which is very exciting. We saw the car back at the NEC, the Alpine dressed Carlos Sainz, his Renault from back, I think it was in 2019, if I'm not mistaken. Might be before that, actually, 2018.
Yeah, beautiful livery on the Alpine. Yeah. We said it, I think it's the best looking car on the grid, and dare I say it, I think it's better than the actual car in real world.
It looked good in the flesh, I have to say. Jarno Opmeer now in the box as well. Every single car has decided to come in. Danny Berejnay, Otis Lawrence retiring, feeling that their job is done. Just look at that top 5. 95 thousandths of a second separate from P5 all the way up to P1. You then have Thomas Ronhaar just on the cusp as well, looking like he's in a better vein of form.
I wouldn't be too confident just yet. Normally we start to see drivers retire up at the front end in these early qualifying sessions. Save tyres, save time, save energy as well. But when you looked at the top 15, George, the top 15 were only separated by just shy of 0.3 of a second, which obviously in a normal sense isn't a lot of time at all. However, in sim racing, it is a larger margin, especially at the caliber of these drivers. However, with track development being a big feature throughout these sessions, 0.3 isn't a huge margin to be cut down, so I wouldn't be too confident too early on. I'm sure they'll be all right, but who knows? Anything can happen here.
Yeah, we just briefly saw as well Andre Kunchman in behind Jarno Opmeer, of course, team manager of the Red Bull Sim Racing team, and has been working for quite a good deal of time now with Max Verstappen's outfit, obviously trying to produce great sim racing drivers for the future, and many of them actually going on to compete in real-life motorsport as well. And of course, Jarno Opmeer actually coming from it in another angle, coming in from prior in-car experience to now becoming one of the, no doubt, one of the greatest of all time in terms of F1 sim racing in itself. And of course, the stats do back that up. And I'm sure Freddie Rasmussen is going to look to try and argue that case as well, with the number of points that he's accrued over his time with the team, not to mention his own World Championship title back in 2023-24. There's Istvan Pukki, who prior to joining Williams, former Mercedes and former Ferrari car.
Yeah, Istvan Pukki, we know he's a strong driver. His raw pace is absolutely outstanding and always finds himself up at the front end of qualifying. As you mentioned, former Ferrari driver, current Ferrari driver, we know is strong in qualifying around this circuit. Ismail Fassi, he's already had a pole position around this circuit in the past, looking to replicate that pace today. Let's see what he's able to do. I wouldn't put it past an Ismail Fassi pole position once again.
Yeah, well, we've got as well Freddie Rasmussen, who's also exceptionally quick around this circuit. And he's actually the highest of those that have yet to retire to now make his way around the circuit for one more flying lap. We are in the final minutes now. Istvan Pukki, of course, part of two drivers that have yet to set official lap times down. So an immense amount of pressure here for Pukki, much like it will be as well for Duncan Hoffland. John Evans also in the drop zone as well. Could be on the cusp of being dropped out. Remember, folks, that anyone below P15 will be evicted from this session, and then we will head into Q2 with 15 cars, with 5 dropping out at the end of that Q2 session as well, to leave our top 10 for the pole shootout, as Istvan Pukki now looks to light up the timing screen. Qualifying now officially complete. I can tell you, it's purple inside that first sector for Istvan Pukki on this lap.
Crunch time is well and truly underway. Pukki and Hoffland not leaving much margin for error at all, as they both have not set a time yet on these standings. So it'll be this lap and this lap only that decides if they make it through to Q2. Pukki, however, looking to be on a barnstormer of a lap right now, a 1/10th improvement on his theoretical best. It's only green in the second sector, but that purple first sector will very much help out his momentum through the tight and twisty sections of the circuit. Now heading down towards this mid part, DRS is wide open. Pukki hitting the limiter on 330 kilometers an hour, hits his braking point into 27, out onto the home straight. Where can the Williams drivers assert himself as he now pinned to the white line down the home straight? Where does Pukki go? It's P2 for Istvan Pukki. Ulash Olazildrib is going to jump up as well into P4, and Julian Klaffenbach responds second for the Mercedes drivers. All the drivers now crossing the line for their final times. Hoffland invalidates again. No time set for the Aston Martin driver Duncan Hoffland. Big surprise, out in Q1.
Yeah, painful there for Duncan Hoffland. Joris Krozen comes across the line as well. That is all she wrote from qualifying. Ismail Fassi right on the bubble of elimination, P15. That could have very easily been an early eviction and a major shock for the Ferrari squadron. But there we have it. There you can see Duncan Hoffland, a tough visit on his return to an F1 sim racing event. The only driver to invalidate and not set an official flying run, Kai.
Yeah, you could see the heartbreak and the confusion as well on Duncan Hoffland's face as he was just staring deadpan at his screen. Not really sure what happened there. Unsure on where that invalidation was for Duncan Hoffland, but wherever that was, pushing the limits maybe just a little bit too much. Could he have played it a bit safer and found himself in Q2, George?
Well, you never know. I mean, obviously, if he played his cards right, very likely. You saw the improvement from Istvan Pukki. I mean, to jump like he did from out of the drop zone and then up into P2, we saw the purple first sector at the same time. Truly phenomenal on his part. I mean, we know he struggled a little bit with his appearances coming into this session, not forgetting that he's subbing in for a veteran of Williams, Alvaro Carreton, who has been with the team ever since 2018, the longest serving driver with one team in the history of F1 sim racing. But obviously Pukki showing that he does have enough in his back pocket to bring himself to the dance. John Evans, obviously very disappointing again for him, featuring down into the in the bottom end as well. Ferrari very nearly with 2 cars eliminated towards the end of the session.
And that's not what you expect from a previous pole sitter around this circuit. Istvan Pukki, great job to punch in the time when it was needed most, but Ismail Fassi, P15. It may have been commentator's curse that I just said that it could have been a repeat pole position from Ismail Fassi, but 15th, just not good enough. Another driver there, Alfie Butcher. This McLaren lineup is looking good heading into this qualifying session as well, both up at the front end of those qualifying times in Q1, but you can't read into it too much. It's only the starting stages of qualifying and still plenty more action to come.
Yep. Well, there we have John Evans out of the session and a real tough visit for him. And it's been the story, really, of his competition so far. Still awaiting to score his very first F1 Sim Racing World Championship points. He's very much in the same column as Julian Klaffenbach at the moment, but of course he, on the other hand, as opposed to Klaffenbach, has been part of the F1 Sim Racing World Championship since 2022. The team that he was part of when he first joined, Aston Martin as well, and Duncan Hoffland was another driver that unfortunately fell to the sword at Jeddah. So unfortunately will not be making his way through to Q2. And I must say there were a few drivers that retired early, Kai, who might have felt a little bit nervous come the very end. We're going to take a look at this replay though.
Yeah, Butcher, Hoffland and John Evans being your drivers retired. He invalidated so early on the lap. First
Turn
corner,
two, yeah.
Just trying to jump over the apex way too quickly, trying to use too much track to his advantage and slapped with an invalidation because of it. The white lines are there for a reason. If you can't stick within them, there is no arguing it at all. So Hoffland, it's Evans and Butcher out. Butcher, his luck just not improving after leaving off at Secure on retirement.
Yeah, of course, Duncan Hoffland has been part of the Aston Martin fold for such a long time. Since 2022, served as a development driver for so many years. And obviously helping out other drivers from the past, such as Simon Weigang, for example, going back to 2023-24. Fabrizio Donoso Delgado, also a former driver that represented the Aston Martin squad at the same time. But Duncan Hoffland getting the call up a season or so ago, and obviously just trying to find his feet here in this championship. Certainly not something we've come to expect from him. Years gone by, he would have been battling against the likes of Wilson Hughes in Top Flight League racing on the consoles back in the day, and just hasn't quite found that same form as of late. But Jarno Opmeer, another one to watch. Obviously, not necessarily a damaging qualifying for him. I think we'll expect more going through to Q2. You're not going to necessarily see your top guns at the top of Q1 straight away. Generally, they like to get the laps in, retire early, and then focus on Q2.
Well, as I mentioned, George, if you're through to Q2, you're still within a shout of that Q3 position. And from there, it is any man's game to pick up that pole position. 10 drivers all battling it out for that one sacred spot and also an extra championship point. That 1 point can go a long way, as we know in F1 Sim Racing. It is tight margins between these drivers, tight margins in the championship, and every point counts.
Yeah, well, we just saw another team that need every point possible, and that was Mercedes, Julian Klaffenbach, Thomas Ronhaar. Better performance from Ronhaar. I definitely see some bright sparks there. He's mixing it up with lap times that are more consistent to what we would see from those in the top end.
Yeah, he just needs to translate this into his race pace as well. Ronhaar, it was 4th position in that session. It was some great times being put down by the Mercedes driver, but the question that looms over it all is he able to do that consistently throughout the 50% distance races that we have? 25 laps around Jeddah. Can he do that for the full 25 laps? Because if you want to be scoring points in this championship and you want to be up at the front end, that's what you need to do.
Well, in the meantime, as we digest Q1, we can now head down to Nina Jade Paul. She's with John Evans.
You have to take the highs and lows sometimes in Formula One sim racing, and we are seeing that here today. John, P17, unfortunate out there. Talk us through your session.
Yeah, I just first run had a mistake with the battery. It clicked off, losing loads of time in the last sector. Then in the final run, just hit the wall in sector 1. I grazed it, and I mean, in this series, if you do that, it cost me like 2-3 attempts. You may as well you have to do the greatest second half of the lap ever to get out. So yeah, just a silly mistake, but pace is looking good, and hopefully race can go well. It's difficult to make up positions, and then the 2 rounds coming, pace is also looking good, so should be all right.
I mean, this circuit can be so unforgiving, like, you know, starting further back is never ideal, but the slipstream is quite powerful around here. What opportunities do you see in the race?
It's going to be tough from where we are, but I think hopefully we just got to hope for chaos ahead, to be honest. Usually Jeddah, there's lots of incidents and things. Yeah, so if that happens, there's a chance for points, but yeah, it's going to be tough.
I have a sneaking feeling you will get your chaos. Good luck.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Nina Jade Paul, getting all the insight from John Evans as we now head into the Q2 session. It certainly has been a disappointing time. Poor John, obviously, coming in to step up for Barry Buraman, the Iranian, who has largely been kept away, obviously, and it's a shame that we don't have Barry here. But with John stepping up at the very last minute, having not necessarily perhaps the prep time, Kai, like other drivers have had, it does leave you on the back foot a little bit.
Yeah, and preparation is everything for these F1 esports drivers. When speaking to Nico Longe last night when we were having dinner, he mentioned how long they were actually spending on the simulators as well. And Nico said, well, on a good day of practice leading up to the races, they're spending 8 to 10 hours in their sim rigs. I mean, that is pretty much the whole day glued to the screen, getting the laps in, tweaking every minor detail so that they can be pitch perfect on the circuit.
Yeah, obviously that's what they have to do to be top flight pros here in this championship. Obviously, the F1 Sim Racing World Championship, the pinnacle as far as sim racing goes, certainly where it comes to the single seaters, and the drivers spend their entire calendar year building up to this series, this entire event. Obviously, still drivers in the pits so far, but many drivers making their way out for this early part of this Q2 session. Tom Manley, obviously remaining in the box, as is Joris Krozen, Nico Longe, Otis Lawrence, as well as Ulas Elgildo. We're currently watching Jarno Opmeer out on track right now, flying in through the very fast left and right. Certainly another location where track limits may be a tricky fixture for a lot of drivers out there, but he's making his way through the final sector, looking to lay down a solid benchmark before then making his way back into the box where he'll reassess and I'm sure have a little chat with his engineers, as he always often does. So we caught them having a debrief back at DreamHack at the NEC. Of course, a very intimate setting as Jarno Opmeer now goes fastest so far with a 1:26.103 to kick us off. Obviously, more drivers coming across the line. We've got one making his way into the pits. That's Julian Klaffenbach. Freddie Rasmussen makes it a Red Bull double act up at the top as well. So it's a 1-2 so far for the Red Bull team. In comes Ismail Fassi. He comes into the box as well. We've got Istvan Pukki, who's going to come about now very shortly. Whether he completes a lap or decides to come in much like a few others, we will wait and see. And indeed, Danny Berejnay will come into the box as well for Alpine, a driver who has had 2 stints in Mercedes in the past, of course, taking, if you remember, all the way back to 2018, Brendan Lee to his 2nd title in the F1 Sim Racing World Championship as a teammate alongside him. He also took Jarno Opmeer to his very first world title at Sauber. So plenty of history as far as Danny Berejnay is concerned in this series, and is also not a bad driver himself, though I did take a look at the stats again, and I don't think he's won a race since 2019, Kai.
No, it's been a while for Danny Berejnay, or Danny 5 brake pedal Berejnay, as we call him, as Danny is very notably very harsh on the brake pedal, which is going to be useful around a track like Jeddah here, especially at that final corner, one of the most crucial braking zones on the circuit. But yeah, Danny Berejnay being listed at 202 centimetres, which is 6'7", barely fits into his simulator, crammed in there. So it's amazing that he's even able to get these laps in on the track. But yeah, as you mentioned, not a race win in quite a few years for Danny Berejnay. Has taken home a few podiums last season, most notably his P2 result at Silverstone. Silverstone coming up later on tomorrow, so I'm sure he'll be looking forward to that one. So let's see what Berejnay is able to do. As you said earlier on, George, Alpine, a very interesting lineup. You've got one of the greatest veterans in F1 sim racing that is going to be learning a lot from a fresh set of eyes alongside him, as well as I'm sure we will be seeing from Otis Lawrence. He'll be learning from Danny Berejnay in the old ways and the driving styles and the competitive styles that these drivers will have to bring forward to be up at the front end. But Danny Berejnay can also learn a lot from Otis Lawrence. Sometimes all you need is a fresh set of eyes to solve a problem, and that's what Otis Lawrence brings to Alpine.
Absolutely right. Obviously, Danny Berejnay, a hardened veteran in the F1 Sim Racing World Championship space, and looking to fire back to his very best form. We know he is capable of it. Here's Ismail Fassi, of course, a former runner-up in this series going back to last year, fell behind Jarno Opmeer, but an emotional scene during his first ever race win. In fact, the only Williams driver going back years ago before, of course, he signed with Ferrari to take a race victory. If you want to go back to Williams' best result ever, it was actually Tino Nakarunen back in 2018 at Australia, very first round of the championship. And Ismail Fassi, where did he win? It was Australia, of course, last year, where he raced for the Williams team and took a very solid and sensational victory on that part, and the tears were flowing for him. Unfortunately, nothing of the sort necessarily since then at Williams. Obviously, when he went to Ferrari, though, different kettle of fish, now looking to prove himself in front of the Scuderia. Jarno Opmeer, who now with Red Bull, we obviously observed his times with Mercedes and Sauber. We can go back as far as Renault, though, if you want to go back a little further, alongside Cedric Tomei and Simon Weigang. Two fantastic teammates that Jarno had alongside him. But obviously now looking to prove himself once more at Red Bull to make it 2 championships at Red Bull. Remember, he's never won more than 1 world title with one specific team. It was 1 world title with Sauber, 1 world title with Mercedes, 1 world title with Red Bull, and I'm talking drivers' titles. So if he does it again in a Red Bull, it'd be the first team he does a double with.
Well, there is a very good chance that he can change that, as looking strong, the favourite coming into this season as well, a big target on the back of Jarno Opmeer, as everybody is looking for that top spot. He's coming off the back of such a strong season last year and already proving that form has not changed, maybe even improved, as we've seen from the 3 races so far this season as well. Jarno Opmeer doing a great job. You mentioned there Ismail Fassi's results for Williams. If we actually have a look at the results from Williams last year, Ismail Fassi was the only driver in that pairing to A, win a race, and B, score any podiums. All 4 podiums and the race victory all came from Ismail Fassi. So putting the team quite literally on his back last season at Williams. Now he's got a fresh set of colours, fresh set of tyres and fresh legs at Ferrari, but is he able to run away with that?
We'll soon find out. The man who came the other way, Nico Longuet, about to lay down his first lap of this Q2 session. 6 minutes to go, goes fastest now. So we get the Frenchman arriving on the scene with Danny Berejnay, also looking to register his time. He goes fastest as well. So the track now starting to generate a 1:25.4 from Danny Berejnay. Ulas Yildirim going quickest now. What about Julian Klaffenbach? He'll go 4th, at least in the initial. Remember, we still have 6 minutes or so to go. So plenty of time for yet another run after this one, but Otis Lawrence will be next nonetheless, goes 3rd quickest, and 1:25.497, a hair's breadth between these drivers individually inside this top 3, and you could extend that even further down. They're so closely matched, and Jarno Opmeer is going to be the next man to register a time, gets so close to the inside, and will go a little bit higher. I believe he goes 3rd, 4th fastest in the initial. Here comes now Tom Manley, the former Challengers champion, 7th quickest here for Tom Manley. Elsewhere, other drivers are going to register their names to the higher echelons. Istvan Pukki now currently 6th. Ron Hart further down. Rasmussen jumps ahead of Jarno Opmeer as well and goes 4th fastest, and now makes his way through turns 1 and turns 2. Joris Krozen, the only driver yet not to set a lap time. Obviously, Klaffenbach currently sat down in 14th fastest, with Ruben Pedreño just in front. If you want a review of the drivers that will be eliminated should things remain the same, it's Tamas Gal, Nico Longuet, Ruben Pedreño and Julian Klaffenbach, along with Joris Krozen. Haas could see both cars out of the session if they don't do something about it now. There's Danny Berejnay, who I would suggest is probably feeling a little calm and comfortable, obviously featuring in 2nd, just in behind Ulas Yildirim, who's once again back again. And once again, Kai, Ulas Yildirim proving that his 1-lap pace is his best friend.
Yeah, Ulas Yildirim topping the timing tables right now, but not by much at all. It's only 100th of a second that separates Ozzy Yildirim and Danny Berejnay. Berejnay, a barnstormer of a lap there. You could see quite impressed, am I, and he was also very happy with his lap. The drivers that are outside the top 10 are even teetering on the edge of elimination in Q2. Tom Manley and Jake Benham will be wanting to dash back to the pit lane as soon as possible, get a fresh set of rubber on their cars and get back out again to try and improve on that lap, because you can't play around with these small margins in F1 sim racing. We've learned time and time again, drivers being displacement and also not taking the most care out of their car, out of themselves, that's where you'll slip up. You need to be on your A game 100% of the time if you want to find yourself in Q3.
Absolutely. Well, I can tell you that the top 8 are all within 96 thousandths of a second right now, so it's immensely tight in amongst this field. If you want to extend that, Julian Klappenbox, obviously the lowest time that's been registered. Obviously appreciate Joris Kroesen, he's just under him, but he's not yet set a lap time. You're talking over 2¼ tenths of a second. Just over that, in fact, as now we see Tom Manley come. Well, Tom Manley's in the box, but also the Red Bulls coming in for a stop as well. There is Freddie Rasmussen and, of course, Jarno Opmeer. So far, so good. And Andre Kunschmann just brushing his hair ever so slightly, maybe out of nerves, I'm not quite sure. Obviously, Jarno Opmeer looking to break the spell of 2 successive qualifying sessions out of Q2. So this is a important session for the Flying Dutchman and could yet tee him up nicely. He knows that while overtakes can be made at Jeddah, just due to the nature of the tight walls, the better you qualify, and I know it may sound like a cliche, the better chance you're going to have in the race. And obviously that comes certainly as no surprise from those of you that have tuned in and watched Formula One over the many years that it's been around since 1950, of course. Danny Berejnay out on track and now looking to flurry in the big times, and he's been strong so far, Kai.
Yeah, it was P11 and P14 for Jarno Opmeer in Sakhir and Suzuka. Found it a lot harder in Suzuka to make his way through the pack. Japan, a more difficult track to overtake on. We're looking on board with the Haas driver, another invalidation. Drivers need to be so careful, especially when they're riding on the limits, to not push that car over the limits. Even just brushing the white line is enough for an invalidation. And you may watch it and think, well, what did they really gain than being a millimetre to the left or a millimetre to the right? It's not about that. The lines are there for a reason. These are stone hard, cold track limits, and every driver has to deal with it. Frustration can then start to form on the driver within their mind as well if invalidations start to pile up, and that's what you need to avoid. Having a clear head coming onto a lap, forgetting about last results, last laps, and any heartache that has happened in the past. You need to brush that aside and focus just on the moment.
Absolutely right, Kai. Obviously, Joris Kroesen, I think the unfortunate party to get that invalidation going through the fast left and right, and therefore is the only driver not to set a lap to the board.
Yep.
Danny Berejnay, we're currently seeing just getting the tyres ready and raring to go, about to take the final corner. We're a minute away or so from the end of this Q, well, until the checkered flag comes down or out on this Q2 session. And last chance saloon for those inside that bottom 5, and there is some big names there if you include Nicolas Longuet, and not to mention Ruben Pedreño, especially after that P3 that he managed to pull together last time out at Bahrain. Ingenious move to start on the soft tyres, going against the grain of everybody else on the grid. And we could yet see something more akin to that when we head perhaps to Silverstone later on in the event as well. But we'll now watch and see as Danny Berejnay looks to light up those rears and fly through this first sector as well, laying down a not quite an improved lap time. That is a first sector split of around 95 thousandths off his personal best, so needs to find a little bit more if he wants to try and trump Ulassos Yildirim, who once again electrifies us with his phenomenal pace that has been on show right through the course of this season, certainly over one lap, but the racecraft perhaps letting him down ever so slightly. Here comes Berejnay though, in towards the very fast slalom, through the lefts, the rights, you name it. There's plenty of them here at Jeddah, as now he looks to take the next one. Remember, a blind apex. This was where Kroesen got it wrong. Berejnay also with some very unwelcome memories of course, this circuit in the past. If we go back to what happened last year, and wishing his teammate Jake Benham at the time luck ahead of the remainder of the race. Of course, Berejnay crashing out unceremoniously, but now making his way out of the final corner. Berejnay looking to promote himself from P2, but he's going to bring the car in. No improvement, but I tell you, a man who is improving, it's his teammate Otis Lawrence, a winner here last season and looking to drop Ulassos Yildirim off the top as now the Welsh driver looks to spearhead towards the line and will only go second. Only enough for second. It was not enough for purple in that final sector. Here comes Tom Manley. Into fourth he will go. A really strong visit as Klaffenbach. My goodness! Julian Klaffenbach with the first fastest time. Nico Longe now goes fastest as well. My goodness me! What a re-entry from those two from the very bottom of this session. Truly unfathomable. And just look at those that are featuring in the drop zone as Joris Krozen now goes fastest as well. Incredible stuff towards the end of this session now as those rooted to the bottom sing to the top, much like Jarno Opmeer, who goes provisional fastest here in Q2.
Freddie Rasmussen crosses the line in 11th position. Another Red Bull departing in a Q2. You couldn't write it, even if you had a Magic 8 Ball, and that will be a retirement and an exit there from the teammate of this man right here. Jarno Opmeer will go through safely into Q3, but the teammate alongside him with 4 figures of points, over 1,000 points accumulated in his career, Freddie Rasmussen, out in Q2.
Well, I tell you what, that could be a moment that places Jarno Opmeer well and truly in the sights of that 1,000-point tally. Of course, he is going to... The Red Bull certainly believe he's going to hit that this season. I would suggest he's definitely got a great chance. But what about this young man, Julian Klaffenbach? Welcome to the show, my friend. Brilliant stuff, and you could just see the smile on his face. I bet you he's absolutely thrilled, and he certainly is, that's for sure. What a display from the Mercedes driver, the young man who comes in, youngest driver on the grid, of course, this season, and obviously has all the weight in the world on his shoulders in looking to represent the, obviously one of the most well-known and respected teams in Formula One in its modern day, Mercedes. Jake Benham, I mean, obviously, just look at him, just pensively waiting behind the scenes. Obviously, we saw some major shocks in that one. I mean, Rasmussen going out, that is not something you generally see when it comes to qualifying. He's fast ready for a reason, Kai.
Yeah, huge shock. And also, both McLarens out of Q2. Already out in Q1 was Alfie Butcher, and Jake Benham just committing way too much to the apex, clipping the wall on the inside, and that subsequently just pinged him across the circuit, out of track limits, and disappointment, the only word that can describe the results here from McLaren. No driver makes it to Q3.
Yes,
after we were singing their praises as well.
Yeah, well, these were the two drivers that came in as podium sitters coming out of Event 1. And obviously, we allude to Jake Benham's past. His first podium was here, if I'm not mistaken. So there we have it. Not necessarily going to happen this time, though, just based on the fact that he qualified the way he did, just catching the barrier at a very awkward location. It really does put him on the back foot, unfortunately. He's going to have to try and fight back when the race comes around later on today. But really astonishing scenes. Obviously, Jarno Opmeer seemingly back to his qualifying best. I mean, it doesn't really get much better than that. I mean, Q2, P1, and tees you up nicely and full of confidence for Q3.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry too much if you're these drivers just outside of the top 10, because as we know, Jeddah, the first street circuit that we're seeing on the calendar this season, always has the unexpected around the corner. Chaos will rewrite the strategy around this circuit. You may think it'll be a straightforward strategy of mediums to hards, hards to mediums, but with everything going on the circuit, all the battling, drivers, maybe retirement, safety cars, VSCs, anything can happen here at Jeddah, and you really do have to adapt and react to everything going on around you.
But we saw what happened last year, didn't we? I mean, it was chaotic in the final runs of qualifying. But Thomas Ronhart, obviously another driver who's looking to improve. I mean, obviously there must be some eras of confidence there at Mercedes, just based on what we saw from Julian Klaffenbach. But yeah, certainly some major questions for some of the drivers to answer as they make their way through the course of the day. Many of them on the back foot off the back of that session. Some major surprises, some major shocks, that's for sure. No less this man being the biggest of them all. Obviously a former world champion, and unfortunately, qualifying as far down as he did, he was P11 come the end of the session. I mean, that is certainly not where we expect Freddie to be. And there's a few chinks in the armour starting to show here, Kai, because we had the jump start at Japan.
Yep.
He crashed out after the incident with Klaffenbach as well, though he kept it going to the end. I was amazed he did and achieve a points finish at the end of Bahrain. If he keeps making these mistakes, his quest for a second world title may well be thrown away. But we did hear that Red Bull do have a tendency, if one driver is not necessarily in the title picture, they'll help the teammate.
Of course, and with Freddie Rasmussen, I think it's fair to say question marks are looming over his head, especially after this result. You mentioned starting to show his weak side, but that's so unheard of for Freddie Rasmussen.
Yeah.
We know him as this strong, consistent driver. You can always rely on him to score points and be up at the front end to help out the team, not just himself, but also his teammate alongside him. And 0.003 of a second, it doesn't sound like anything at all. You blink and you'd miss it, but that's all it takes to be exiting out of Q2. Thomas Ronhaar then following as well. Q1 was a great display from him. Q2 wasn't able to replicate. However, his teammate, on the other hand, of Julian Klaffenbach, will find himself hot and ready for Q3. Thomas Gall, right there in the Haas colours, unfortunately will not proceed into Q3 as well, but plenty of retirements.
Yeah, absolutely right. Obviously, you can just see Joris Krozen sat there, obviously, with smiles on his face. He hasn't necessarily got things to worry about. Thomas Gall, on the other hand, maybe a little bit to worry about. Obviously, no Q3 visit for him. But in the meantime, we can throw down to the arena. Nina J. Paul is with Thomas Ronhaar.
What a crazy session that was. I am with Thomas. I mean, such tight margins in that session. You were only a 10th off of P1, off of the fastest lap. Bad luck.
Yeah, no, it's luck wasn't on my side this quali. I made one very small mistake in the final corner, which made me lose half a tenth, which was, yeah, easy to be, let's say, with Julian in P4. But yeah, mistake like this can be very costly and paid the price today in quali. Yeah, but I'm sure we'll bounce back in the race. I think we are really, really prepared, really good. I think way better than event 1. So yeah, I think there's still a lot of positives to look forward to. And yeah, I think the motto is never give up.
You mentioned event 1. Mercedes currently find themselves at the bottom of the Constructors' Championship with 12 points to their name. Can you give us some insight, Thomas, into the struggles you're having?
It's not been the easiest, let's say, start of the season. We knew what the issues were after the event, which I think we fixed straight away. Just, yeah, a mistake from myself, unfortunately, made me go out in Q2, which is very unusual. Just didn't expect it today, but yeah, like I said, I think we have a lot of positive to look forward to. And yeah, I'm sure there'll be, like in Bahrain, there'll be some moments. And yeah, hopefully I could pick them up.
I mean, Jeddah is famously chaotic. I'm sure points are on the table today.
Oh, for sure. I think there's still anything can happen. I think even, I mean, you saw Jan, he started P12 and he won from Bahrain. So maybe it's a sign. I think, generally speaking, I think I'm going to get as many points as possible. And yeah, we'll see what happens.
Well, best of luck later.
Cheers. Cheers.
Well, thank you, Nina Jade Paul. Obviously, Thomas Ronhaar ever so slightly despondent with the result, but also a little bit of hope there as well that he can do something similar to what Jarno Opmeer did at Bahrain. And he's not wrong in saying that, Kai.
No, I mean, we've seen it live in the flesh that anything can happen. You can start from far back in the grid, from 11th position in the case of Jarno Opmeer. And as long as everything goes your way, you position your car in the right place at the right time, and you find yourself taking advantage of these opportunistic situations. That's how Jarno Opmeer was able to make his way up 10 places and take the race victory. He was feeding off the mistakes of other drivers around him and just reading the situations really, really well, which is why Jarno Opmeer is such a strong driver. Why he's a 3-time world champion is he may not be the fastest in terms of one-lap pace. He may not be the fastest at all in terms of race pace as well, but he's smart and he's calculated, and that wins races and that wins championships.
But now if he's got the combination of speed as well as being calculated, that's worrying for every driver on the grid, right?
It's a scary position to be in. And for everyone apart from Jarno Opmeer. For Jarno Opmeer, it'll be a big smile on his face.
No doubt. Ruben Pedreño, though, will be the first to cross the line to register a lap time here in Q3. Many other drivers out on outlaps, though Ruben Pedreño not wasting any time. 1:26.094, if I'm not mistaken. And it goes fastest in the Aston Martin. Danny Berejnay in the Alpine, just getting those tyres nice and warm before he heads on for his first lap of this Q3 session. A little reminder that this is all about pole position, everybody. Of course, the drivers here in this top 10 shootout, all on a quest to sit on the front row of the grid for the start of this Saudi Arabian race. Here comes now the Hungarian, Danny Berejnay, across the line, and the timer will start ticking as he makes his way through towards turn 1, heading into the chicane. And these chicanes, Kai, oh so aggressive.
Oh, they really are, especially through turn 1 and 2. It's apart from turn 27, your only real heavy braking zone of the circuit. So it's so crucial to position yourself correctly and hit that braking point on the nail head every single time. You can't afford any margin of error. A metre too early, a metre too late, that's all time lost. And any time lost is so crucial in a grid that is so tight. 0.003 of a second was all it took to be eliminated from Q2. And just that could be 5 metres in the braking zones. That could be positioning your car half a metre to the left, half a metre to the right. All of these small margins, I'm sure the drivers will go over, they'll watch all the footage and recuperate with their team, look over where they can improve, where the mistakes were made before the race later on tonight.
No question. Danny Berejnay now, obviously full flight and committing to every single apex. Just see so close to the barriers now as he now heads through the final sector. He's looking to put the cherry on the cake of this particular lap, at least just to lay down a benchmark with 6 minutes and 25 to go. It's been a strong showing so far from both Alpines. Obviously one of the few teams that have both cars in this final session. In fact, as we now watch them make their way down through towards the line. In fact, RB also in the same picture for that with Tom Manley and Jonas Ols-Yildirim, with Danny Berejnay now going quickest. Julian Klaffenbach will be next. Really lit the timing screen up in our last session and now goes second fastest. Does jump ahead Ruben Pedreño, but just look at the golfing gap. 6.5 tenths as now Jonas Ols-Yildirim brings it down. Otis Lawrence, a double act of Alpines up at the very top of the order as Nico Longuet goes fourth fastest here this time. Brilliant display from him as well. And Ismail Fassi looking to be next, Kai.
Yeah, we could see a repeat celebration after Suzuka of the team celebration over at Alpine. The camaraderie and the teamwork between all of them is so great to see as Otis Lawrence, as you mentioned, topping the timing screens. 500ths behind him, though, Danny Berejnay, his teammate. That's when we have the large margin back to Jonas Ols-Yildirim. Don't expect it to stay anything similar at all. As soon as it gets to the dying embers and into those final laps that the drivers will put down on the circuit, that is when the margins tighten up, and that is when we will really find out who's going to be up at the top end. Talking about being up at the top end, Jarno Opmeer is here to ruin the party. He splits the Alpines.
25 thousandths between Jarno Opmeer and Otis Lawrence at the top of the shop. Danny Berejnay, Jarno Opmeer's former teammate, down in third. It's the two finger pointers at the top of the order. We saw Otis Lawrence celebrating last time out. It was Jarno Opmeer as well who replied. Well, who is going to be shaking their fist this time at the end of the race coming up later today, or most notably now, pole position, which would certainly send a message to their opponent. Let's wait and see. Otis Lawrence, though, currently with the advantage. 25 thousandths, 58 thousandths back is Danny Berejnay. Jonas Ols-Yildirim and Tom Manley, a much improved RB display in terms of both cars featuring inside the top 5. Tom Manley just over half a second outside of the spectrum, but of course expect those times to come cascading down. That gulf in terms of margin between Ols-Yildirim and Otis Lawrence standing at half a second. Some of the drivers may be finding it prudent to go out on a U set for the first runs. Perhaps that is always a possibility, not to mention some drivers may have an extra set available for the chance to use 2 fresh sets through the course of Q3. That's always a possibility. Jarno Opmeer, though, no concern so far for the Flying Dutchman. Always a question mark over his one-lap pace, but I have to tell you, he's come here with a different kind of venom to the Jeddah Street Circuit.
Is this a new and improved Jarno Opmeer when you already thought that he couldn't improve? He was at the peak of his game. If he sorts out this qualifying, this could be a very scary and a very threatening Jarno Opmeer, as if he wasn't threatening enough, especially with that performance out in Bahrain last time. So far this season, average finishing position of 5th in each race, so always within the top 5, taking home a minimum of 10 points on average each race. Jarno Opmeer will want a bit more than 10. He'll be wanting the full 25.
Absolutely right. Of course, now currently sat second fastest. Plenty of other drivers to consider, though, because bear in mind, we can't forget that despite there not being others that necessarily should be at the top of the shop, obviously with Ismail Fassi, I'd expect him to improve in the dying stages. Same can be said for Nico Longuet as well. So do not rest on your laurels, everyone at home, and I'm sure you'll have your say as to who you think is going to take all the spoils, all the plaudits after this one. Really impressed, though, with Julian Klaffenbach, I have to say. This has definitely been his best performance to date, as far as qualifying is concerned anyway, Kai.
Well, Julian Klaffenbach, as we mentioned, the rookie that has not scored any points yet in the Mercedes colours, but how perfect would it be? How amazing would it be, George, if Julian Klaffenbach was able to take home his first point and that be a pole position?
Absolutely. And not only that, convert it from pole to victory, I think would be
There we go.
absolutely incredible. It's not beyond the realms of possibility. I mean, obviously, when you're on the front row, it does make life a little bit easier because you've got that clean air in front of you.
Well, why not? We may as well add in the fastest lap as well so we can get the clean sweep of 27 points.
Well, he needs every point he can muster now. Certainly Mercedes do as far as the team's title is concerned. Danny Berejnay currently sat at the moment inside that top three. Now witnessing Ismail Fassi, who, as we were discussing earlier on, obviously in need of a big result for the Ferrari team after the difficulties he sustained at Bahrain. He had the big crash with Otis straight into his side pod at turn 1 on the final lap. That was in response to the incredible effort on part of Jarno Opmeer to make that triple overtake to take the race win. So there's a lot of drivers out there possibly hurting at what occurred in that last event.
Yeah, you can't think about past results. As a racing driver, and especially as a sim driver, everything happens so quickly. You can't be pondering your thoughts on anything that happened in the past, any bad results, because that then means that you don't have a clear head to focus on the task at hand.
No, absolutely right. Well, Otis right now just getting ready for the final run. It's getting ever tighter up at the top, obviously with the top three being where they are, 58 thousandths between the top three in the timing screen, then a massive gargantuan half a second between Jonas Yildirim and Otis Lawrence at the top. But expect those numbers to cascade down on this final lap. But with the nature of this being the last lap, you'd expect, obviously, the timer ticking ever onwards and near to zero. We are, in fact, inside the final 30 seconds. So the drivers now, with one last chance to dance here around the Jeddah Street Circuit, the Corniche, and the jewel in the crown of the Saudi Arabian racing scene. As now we see Otis flying through the slalom inside that first sector. Is there any improvement whatsoever? You'd expect at least something as the tractor's generated. Indeed, Danny Berejnay at the very least, going purple inside the first sector. So Alpine are here to party. And he's up on his delta, 45 thousandths against that previous best. Obviously, we'd like to find a little bit more just to rubber stamp himself at the top. But this is very encouraging for the Alpine team. Through the left and through the right. The team from Enstone in their all-emblazoned black and navy blue livery that we all saw in the flesh back at DreamHack in the NEC. Well, now they're going to do it under the lights. At least they hope they will anyway. Coming around the final corner, the Hungarian, hungry for a better result. Here once again to ascend closer and potentially join Red Bull at the end of event 2. This would be a positive start. And Danny Berejnay does garner that positive start. The first fastest lap time and provisional pole for now. Other drivers coming across. Otis Lawrence now 27 thousandths off. Alpine back once again with Otis at the head of the order. 62 thousandths between the top two. Here comes Ulash. He goes third. Brilliant lap from the Turkish driver. Here comes Tom Manley as well. Ever improving. Only enough for fifth. He can't jump any higher, but Julian Klaffenbach can. Brilliant lap. Third fastest Kai.
Unbelievable there from Julian Klaffenbach. Jumps up into fourth position as we see Nico Longe split the two Alpine drivers. And it's all eyes on this man right here. 3 times the champion, but can he be a pole sitter today? He crosses the line, and was it enough? No, it wasn't. Jarno Opmeer, no improvement, and P6 in the end. Your top 3, Otis Lawrence right there. He said he was going to cause a fuss. He said he was going to celebrate, and he does exactly that in righteous celebration. A punch into the air. Otis Lawrence P1, and his teammate of Danny Berejnay P3. What a result there from the Alpines. And Nico Longe, it's a front row start, but frustrated, not happy with his lap.
No, clearly felt there was a lot more to garner for Nicolas Longe. Front row is certainly not a terrible result. Jarno left pondering, left thinking. And what does that message from Otis Lawrence suggest? Of course, you've got 2 very peripheral figures inside this series. We look at Jarno as the giant among men, and we look at Otis Lawrence, the young pretender, the David to the Goliath. We're going to try and take down the giant, and that could be, well, this could be his year. Just needs to ferry in bigger points. The victory in Japan went a long way to reining in those margins, and no doubt with a result like that, it puts him right at the centre the centrefold, if you will, to potentially landing another big result. And they're still celebrating at Alpine here, Kai.
Yeah, absolutely love to see that. We saw it after Suzuka, after the race victory from Otis Lawrence, all of the team embracing each other. And this, once again, just circles back around to his point. Otis Lawrence said this is the happiest that he's ever been at a sim racing team. And it does just look like one great family.
Well, stellar stuff, and we can now take you through the classification for qualifying. It is Otis Lawrence fastest by 37 thousandths of a second. Alpine back on top, and they're getting used to this, aren't they? Nico Longe in second, also back on the front row, with Danny Berejnay making it Alpine 1 and 3. He's joined them on the second row by Julian Klappenbach. What a stellar coming-of-age moment for the youngest driver on the grid. Jonas Zildrim in fifth, Jarno Opmeer down in sixth as well, ahead of fellow Dutch counterpart Joris Kroes, and with yet another stellar qualifying display, chasing yet another points finish, his potential fourth in a row. Tom Manley down in eighth, with Ismael Fassi in ninth. Ruben Pedreño making it an all-Spanish fifth row. Further back, we have Freddie Rasmussen as well as Thomas Ronhaar on the cusp alongside Tamas Gal, Istvan Puki, with the two Hungarians aligned together with Jake Benham, Alfie Butcher, John Evans and Duncan Hoffland reeling off the remainder of that qualifying classification. So Otis Lawrence in a very strong vein of form and clearly looking ever strong. And we're going to hear perhaps a little bit more from Nina Jade Paul.
Yes, I am down with Otis, and all your team ran in. You said you were going to celebrate hard, and you did. You screamed. The place erupted. Pole position by 37 thousandths of a second. Your teammates in third. He called your lap beautiful as well as soon as you crossed the line. Talk us through your emotions, Otis.
Oh, I'm just so happy. It's brilliant to deliver a Jeddah. To be honest, it wasn't my favourite track going into the event, and to put it on pole is such an amazing feeling. My teammate Danny as well behind. What an amazing job he's done as well. To have him behind, he's such a good teammate, and hopefully we can get a good result later on.
You've got the fast starting Nico Longe right behind you. How confident are you in holding that pole position?
Well, it's hard to overtake on this game, but anything can happen in a race. I'm happy I got pole. We just got to focus for the race now. It's not done yet. Only 1 point, but yeah, it's good to get that 1 point, and yeah, I'm happy.
Well, you qualified in P2 last year, pole position this year, so it's going well so far.
Well, hopefully not the P1 curse.
Good luck for the race, Otis.
Thank you.
I'm trying to get my mind back into this after watching what unfolded in Q1, Q2 and Q3. I will ask the guys, George and Kai and Jack, who maybe was the shock there of Q1, Q2 and Q3. But you see what it means to Otis Lawrence and that Alpine team. And he did mention it's the best team he's ever been part of. And do you know what? I've got a little bit of FOMO. I want to be part of that team. I want that celebration. It looks brilliant. He did say he was going to celebrate hard. He definitely did that, didn't he, Jack?
Yeah, I did. And what's this about a P1 curse? Do I need to...
Come on, George, you break it down.
Well, listen, we take last year for an example, Jack. Not necessarily the pole sitter goes on to take the winning result. It was chaotic at the end of last season's extravaganza around the Jeddah circuit. So at the end of the day, Otis not necessarily winning it from pole position, but a little bit further back. But I'm guessing that he's hoping it doesn't happen to him this time. That's what I'm thinking.
Which sort of explains the curse. Ismael Fassi was on pole last year.
Correct.
And wasn't able to take it to victory. But let's talk about it then. Q1, the real shock there, maybe Alfie Butcher for McLaren not going through. That really surprises me. And then when you go forward to Q2, Jake Benham out in P15, a bit of a shock that.
Yeah, Butcher's look just not improving at all. We saw that retirement and the incident with Jonas Zildrim in the last race that we had at Sakhir, and not able to improve on that form, unfortunately, taking that Q1 departure. Q2 departure, there was also a few shocks as well. The biggest of them, me and George mentioned in qualifying. I think we were both in shock with our jaws on the floor. Freddie Rasmussen out in Q2. Not what you'd expect, Tom.
No, 2 poles in event 1 in Shanghai and Suzuka as well. As we look at some highlights from quali, that was a shock. For me, Thomas Ronhaar, he was on an absolute majestic ability to get through to Q3, I think in the last 23 outings. So the run ends. That shocked me most, George. Surprised you?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of a double-edged session, really, for Mercedes, because, I mean, it's a shock, first and foremost. You're absolutely right, Tom. I mean, we'd expect more from Thomas Ronhaar, and this, we kind of thought, especially after what we saw in Q1, that maybe he found his foot, but it doesn't seem to be the case, obviously. And this is where Mercedes really need to correct things. But I've got to say, on the other end of the spectrum, Julian Klappermock, youngest driver on the grid, sending Mercedes up to the very heights of the second row of the grid. I mean, that is an astonishing comeback.
Yeah, for someone who is making his debut in Event 1, I actually asked him before today, I said, are you enjoying it? He said, I'm really enjoying this. And wanted to iron out some silly mistakes from Event 1. And he's done that. I mean, fantastic qualifying, means nothing, no points added to him. What did you take from the Aston Martin guys? I mean, we saw earlier the invalidated lap time from Duncan Alvin. He'll be disappointed with that. And then Ruben Pedrosa making it into Q3, starting 10th on the grid.
Yeah, it sucks for Duncan not to be able to get a lap time, because as we saw, Ruben was able to get to Q3. But I think they did well to get to Q3. I didn't see where he ended up there in Q3, but I think they're definitely happy to get into Q3. They can definitely fight from there.
Yeah, and Joris Krozen for Haas. Delivering again. He seems to be in a rich vein of form, starting P7 on the grid, George.
Yeah, really, really strong. And I must say, it's looking good for 4 point-scoring finishes in a row this season. And this is what I mean about Haas. They're just so consistent this season. I mean, it's a shame, really, that Tamas Gal hasn't shown that same level. Obviously, we know he's capable of it. You know, that goes without saying. We saw some really strong results from him last year. But, you know, it just seems to be the case that Krozen has come out of his shell, over the course of the last year. And, you know, in comparison, total different driver, I think, coming into this season. A reliable pair of hands to land you at least some points through the course of the weekend, which is huge.
Yeah, a driver that finished P3 in quali for the last 3 races. He now starts on the front row, P2. How is Nico feeling, Nina?
Nico is feeling good. Event 1, you had 3 consecutive P3 starts, and you've done one better, P2. You said this is one of your weaker tracks, so with P2, you're absolutely euphoric.
Yeah, I did not expect this waking up this morning. I was looking to do as much damage control as I could. And I also had some issues before in the warm-up with some hardware issues. So like everything was kind of just going wrong. And you could see I was struggling in Q1. I was very slow, barely got through. Q2 again, I was slow at the start, managed to get a good lap in at the end. And then my confidence was just building throughout the session. And I'm just so glad that I managed to even get to Q3 and then to get P2 with a good lap. I'm just happy, yeah.
Now, you were only 37 thousandths off of the pole lap, and you said you were a little bit cautious on that final corner. Do you reckon you could have got pole today, Nico?
There's always a coulda, shoulda, coulda, woulda. But honestly, I just prioritized a good starting position, especially because I had a good Sector 1, good Sector 2. So, yeah, I was a bit cautious, but I wouldn't change it. I would keep it as it is, and now we just focus on the race.
All right, plan for the race. We're going aggressive, or are we playing long-term plan?
I can't reveal my strategies.
We won't reveal the strategies. All right, well, best of luck today, and congratulations again.
Thank you very much.
It was worth a try there, Nina. It was worth the try. He's buzzing. You can see that with Nico. We know what he's about. Such an immense talent, and now doing it for Williams. All right, I want to get hyped for this. We've just seen quali. You guys definitely need a rest. You're going to get about an hour before we come back. What can we expect from this race, especially from maybe the Aston Martin driver Ruben Pedrosa down in P10? We're obviously going to be cheering for him with you, Jack. But what can we expect, and how should the drivers be sort of facing up to what's about to happen later on?
I don't know. I think it'll be chaos. I don't know if they even know what they're going to expect. So, yeah, let's see. We saw how many drivers were hitting the wall and in qualifying, so I can imagine it'll only be the same in the race. And, yeah, with the margins so tight and, there's 3 basically consecutive DRS zones, it makes it super crazy at this track. So, yeah, I honestly couldn't tell you what's going to happen.
Okay, I love that. And that's, as we mentioned earlier on, is why the team is so important now, that we're strategizing with those pit stops. Kai, if you are not Otis Lawrenson, you are not in that top 3 on the grid, you're going to have to go with an aggressive strategy, which Nina tried to get from Nico, right?
Yes and no, because a lot can happen here at Saudi Arabia. The walls are all close, everything's tight, all the drivers are in such a small space. Overtaking is difficult. That also means that margin for error is much more slim than any of the circuits that we've seen on the calendar so far. So chaos will rewrite the strategy, and it's all about adapting to what is happening in the race around you, and who is the most adaptable will be the one that comes out on top.
Short question for you, George, right now. What are you going to do in the next hour? How are you going to rest and come back fresh for this?
I'm going to digest and get ready for the broadcast, Tom. I'm a professional. Come on. No. I mean, listen, I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes. I mean, I think we're going to be in for a compelling race. I cannot begin to fathom or, certainly explain what we're going to see later on, because it is going to be a mystery. And I can tell you that, we may not even see the pole sitter anywhere near the front come the end. That curse could yet continue. I mean, Otis might be ruining his words after that interview.
Well, George is excited. He said that perfectly, and I've been told, stop touching the trophy. That's what I've been told in my ear, because we'll have a short break. Quali is done. Thank you very much to Jack, to Kai, and to George. We'll be back very shortly for that race around Jeddah in Event 2 of the F1 Sim Racing World Championship 2026. George summed it up perfectly. You do not want to miss it.